Mediolanu, a city where creativity flows seamlessly between galleries, runways, and ateliers. Here, centuries of Italian artistic heritage meet the ever-evolving scene of art, fashion, and design. But where do these disciplines merge, and where do they draw the line? I'm Marzena Jarczak, and in the third season of Unseen, I'm heading to Milan to explore its unique creative ecosystem. I'll visit emblematic institutions and meet with pioneering designers, artists, and curators who shaped the city's identity. From historic foundations to cutting-edge studios, I'll dive into the city's creative pulse, discovering not just how it influences our everyday lives, but how it shapes the future of culture. And of course, I am taking you with me. Fashion messaging can reach beyond pure aesthetics. It can carry image, identity, and cultural meaning. Few in Italy have contributed to this understanding as consistently as Carla Sozzani. For decades, she has worked closely with designers, helping to preserve their archives and introducing their work into gallery spaces. Today, she continues to support cultural expression in all forms as the president of Fondazione Sozzani. I'm meeting her at the foundation to talk about the ongoing dialogue between fashion and art and how this exchange shapes our perception of both disciplines. Throughout your career, you've been known for intertwining art and fashion. Why is maintaining the link between the two disciplines so interesting for you?
Well, because I never saw the difference between, it's all about beauty. And for me, it's aesthetic and all what I'm attracted to. Fashion is a form of art in a certain way. When a designer is a great designer, a creator is a great creator, I think it can use fashion as a tool to express the creativity, like a painter.
What qualities do you think a piece of fashion has to have for you to be qualified as an object of art?
Art or not art, I think, has to be original, something that has not been seen everywhere all the time. It's not been, because sometimes it's better something wrong, but original, than perfect, but coming from somebody else.
So beautiful not necessarily has to mean perfect?
No. It has to be personal. I know everything has been done, but in reality, even if it comes from inspiration from another era, another past, or another designer, when somebody has something to say, they interpret it their own way. This is the best moment ever.
The most obvious or the general difference between art and fashion is functionality. So fashion comes with this functional purpose, whereas art not. And do you think that fashion can exist beyond this utility and create a more meaningful experience?
Well, of course, fashion creates an experience because it drives you into a world that you don't know or you want to build for yourself. So it's a whole new world that opens up. But I don't think art is not for living as well. I think art is made to be part of your life. I think it's good to have art in your home, in your bathroom. In the Renaissance time and all the way it was born or before, the ancient was something you lived with. It was not meant to be in a gallery telling you, don't touch me. The contrary, it was part of life of people, no?
Or maybe it was more decorative or the design aspect, because then again it came with this function of being used as an object, for example, as a beautiful chair or a beautiful table.
Yes, design for sure, it's super functional, but even paintings or sculptures is part of your life.
So do you think that you can get the same experience from looking at the painting and from looking at a piece of cloth?
It depends on the piece of clothes.
Of course, and it depends on the piece of art also.
Exactly. Blue sweater talks to you and you think it's for you. It makes you happy. It's a piece of art. It's a piece of something that gives you beauty and peace. I think museum, it's another story. Art can be in museum, fashion can be in museum. Today, what is super fantastic, that the Louvre is open to fashion. The Metropolitan is open to fashion for a long time. So all the museums show fashion. And many times, all the private foundation of fashion designers don't show fashion, but they only show art. So museums show fashion people show art.
Do you think that this context of simply placing a piece of cloth in a museum can change the meaning of fashion?
No, I think it's nice. But, you know, also all the art which is in the museum is not so beautiful.
So then you think that the only purpose of art is bringing out something beautiful?
Or disturbing, but even a dress could be disturbing. It makes you think. Photography can be disturbing. If you want to be surrounded by something disturbing, it's not my case. I like to be surrounded by things that makes me happy and give me peace. I don't want to be, anyway, there's the newspaper, there is internet, there's all this to make you disturbed. I think.
And in a larger than just a personal context, what do you think makes fashion a discipline that is worth preserving?
Because I like design, I like art, there is quality. That's why all the archives, no? They're a piece of art. When you see some clothes that were made by Madame Vionnet, or I don't know, Poiret, wow, no? Jean Lanvin, Madame Gray, these are pieces of art.
What makes them piece of art?
Well, the craftsmanship, the quality, the design, the line, the shape, the form, same as a vase of Picasso. Innovation, it's important in all fields, and then it depends how you use it and how you express it.
And what do you think is the role of fashion in Italian artistic heritage?
I think there is no future without the past, and the past can. The heritage and the legacy that the masters of fashion have left to the young generation, it's an amazing lesson, most of the time also of integrity in the way they work. And also they probably, like Madame Gray or Vionnet or Alaya, they were never happy with themselves. So they thought they could do better and better and better. And this sense of perfectionism, it's something that can only be learned to the new generation through looking at the work of the past. You know, what I think is very important about archives, one thing is to study fashion, and one thing is to touch and learn through reality. And in Italy, of course, we have amazing archives. I forgot Max Mar archives, Gianfranco Ferré archives. I think all artisans in the world should be supported and protected, and also explain to the young people how important it is to use your hands. Think of Calder. Calder, is a great artist, but he was doing everything from his house, no? Each tools, each piece in the kitchen, every handle of the door. Jewels, I mean, there is no real line between those. Design, art, fashion, they're all something that have to be part of your life. Otherwise, what's the point?
Where does fashion end and art begin? The debate is ongoing. I'm meeting Austrian designer and London St. Martin's graduate, Arthur Arbesser, who has worked for renowned Italian fashion houses such as Giorgio Armani and is now growing his own label. His collections strongly reflect the influence of art, but are they art themselves? I've caught him in the midst of moving to a new studio to discuss how he defines his creative practice and how the spirit of Milan shapes his work.
Milan has definitely shaped me in its way of focusing on quality, focusing on how things are made in a certain sort of like understated elegance, even though I'm super full of color, but there is always a certain sort of classiness that I like to bring in. And in Milan especially, design and the architecture and the way of living has been the things that have inspired me.
In your collections, you've referenced artists including Fausto Melotti, Blinky Palermo, Baltus, Maria Lasnik. How would you describe your taste in art, and how does it influence your taste in fashion?
I think my taste in art is always extremely stomach, heart related, sort of like intuitive. Ideally, it comes through a personal connection. For example, Maria Lasnik was my neighbor in Vienna when I grew up, and I made the food shopping for her, because her studio was on the fifth floor and she didn't want to walk up and down the stairs anymore. So obviously I will always have a very soft spot for Maria Lasnik. With Balthus, for example, I met his widow and I was completely smitten by her. So there's always something about a connection.
So it doesn't necessarily start with the visual aspect of you simply appreciating someone's works of art.
Yeah, also, of course, you can fall in love with a color or with a painting, of course. But I always love to get to things through stories and through personal encounters.
Why is passing on the heritage of certain artists so important to you, and how do you approach it?
Not every collection is connected to an artist or to an art form. It's not a method that we say, today we go through all books and look at art. I think I have a very peculiar way of dealing with fashion itself and with creating clothes. And my personal sort of aim is to always tell a little story with each collection. But like, it sounds a bit pretentious that I want to educate someone, but like there is always, I want to give something more than just like produce clothes. So if like someone has never heard of an Austrian artist called Heinz Stangl, for example, who was really big in the 80s in Austria, I'm super happy if someone then knows him through a collection that was inspired by him. I love fashion because it's a way of telling a story. I like to tell a story that has a few more layers than just beautiful clothes. I get more pleasure through art in general, whether it's music or fine arts or paintings or sculpture or performances, than looking at other fashion shows, I guess.
But then if you look at artists, whether it's visual arts or opera, are there any specific things that you are always drawn to?
It's definitely always connected with emotions. There must be something, there must be something arriving. But as I said, this can sometimes be the drinks with the artist after her or his opening. And all of a sudden you get to know the person and then everything falls into place, and I have like a love affair with the artist in that moment, you know, with the work of the artist. It obviously comes down also to color combinations, or sometimes you just like, I don't know, you see beautiful sculpture and you say, God, the surface is so great, maybe you can remake something similar on fabric. But I never take something very literally and like print a painting of someone on a shirt.
So it's never a copy-paste?
No, I have too much respect for someone else's work, and also I have too much pride for myself. I mean, I want to do something myself. I think it's always beautiful when it comes in an exchange. That's why it's also so nice. And so many artists come also to me and say, it starts me, maybe even a painter writes me, I love this sweater, can I buy it somewhere or something like this? And we start writing each other, and she ends up giving me a painting and I give her a sweater. I mean, that's the most beautiful thing ever, no?
It's super interesting because I think that we often limit our thinking about art to seeing it as something confined to galleries and museums. But I think that it's so much more present in our daily lives because it influences so many other disciplines.
I think it's really important to have it's not easy, but to start your day and decide, you know, I let things come in. Because if your eyes are open and you look around, you let it happen in a way.
And do you think that we can learn this openness for art through fashion? Because I would say that on a very basic level, a piece of fashion, a piece of cloth and a work of art, they are made of the same elements. So we have colors, we have textures, we have forms.
The thing about clothes is, well, like I think often you look at a garment, you think, will this look good on me? So this is already sort of a limiting sort of like way of looking at something, because obviously if you look at a beautiful work of art, you don't think how does it look on me, but sometimes you maybe think, how does it look in my home? With fashion, you much more sort of connected with your body and your shape, and you're also the way you look. And with a work of art, you look at it with full of admiration, sort of like curious sort of way. So you detach your body and your physique and your way of how you want to appear in front of the world. Mainly fashion is made to, like, you know, sell and get out there, and like 6 months later you can propose another collection and hopefully sell it again. I presume that a lot of fantastic artworks that we admire didn't have that initial goal in mind, no? And sort of that already puts them on a different sort of pedestal. It justifies the higher position that art has compared to fashion, I think.
And when you think about your work, do you call yourself an artist?
No, I would call myself a creative and someone that really enjoys making things. I think there is this magic about being able to make something. Think about something and then hold it in your hands. I never want to lose this joy of making what I do.
We can debate where the boundaries of art, fashion and design lie, but maybe that line isn't meant to be fixed. What's certain is that these worlds actively influence, challenge and enrich one another, shaping our perceptions, emotions and creative drives. It's easy to be seduced by aesthetics, and yes, beauty matters. But what makes this exchange truly transformative is when it goes deeper, when it pushes us to question and think differently. Art isn't confined to museums. Its impact spills into our daily lives. The clothes we wear, the spaces we inhabit, the objects we choose to surround ourselves with. Our guests reminded us how vital it is not to reduce it to a commodity, because ultimately, the most powerful art doesn't just please the eye. It challenges how we experience life and reshapes our inner landscapes.